Hey crafters, it's Amanda here again. So for today's Tutorial Tuesday, I thought I would do some things that are kind of trending topics right now, and that is fall and school. You know, those kind of go hand in hand, I guess, you know, because school starts up around fall. And something that you have a lot of around the time of school starting is crayons. I've got a nice big box here, and everybody loves a fresh new box of crayons. Just look at that. Just look at that. See the nice pointy edges? It's just so fresh, and I don't know, there's something about a fresh box of crayons. And so, you know, you probably get a fresh box of crayons for every kid each year when school starts. But what always happens, you never actually go through the full box in a year. So you end up with this. Got a bag here, hopefully labeled crayons, you know, just in case we couldn't tell what it was. And you end up with all these crayons that they're still perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with them. They've hardly been used, but you know, there's still just something about having that fresh box of crayons. So what do you do with all this stuff? We're gonna get to that. So it's the time of year for school, but it's also fall, which means it's the time of year for pumpkins. I love pumpkins. You might be getting tired of pumpkins already if you don't like the whole pumpkin spice craze. You know, as I've said before, there are some things that should not be pumpkin spice. But anyways, I still like pumpkins even if you don't like pumpkin spice. They're just really cute and fun. Lots of great crafts that you can do with them. So we're going to combine pumpkins and crayons on this Tutorial Tuesday, and we're going to talk about a fun way to decorate your pumpkins. And what we're going to need a nice pumpkin. We're going to need some old crayons. You're going to want a hairdryer because we're going to melt the crayons with the hairdryer. And you're also going to want a glue gun. The basic idea is we're going to glue some crayons onto the pumpkin, and then we're going to use the hairdryer to melt them, and it'll make really cool designs. So the glue gun's just to help hold it into place, and the hairdryer is to melt the crayons and cause it to run down the sides and create the really cool patterns. Now, I would recommend you do this outside because the crayons, when they melt, they can splatter because they're going to be melted, so they're going to be liquid, and then you're going to be blowing air on them, and so that's kind of a recipe for a mess. So probably want to take this one outside or else in a garage. I'm just going to work on the grass here because I got the okay to get crayon splatter in the grass, so we're going to have some colorful grass here. But make sure you either put something down or work in an area that it won't matter if crayon gets there. However, because I am going to be working with melted crayons and it could splatter, I don't want to wear this. I like this shirt. So you're gonna want to put on some junk clothes, paint clothes, whatever you call your crafting clothes that you don't mind if they get dirty. So I put on this nice oversized tie-dye shirt that I got free from somewhere, and that's what I'm gonna wear. So let's get into today's tutorial. Alright, so the next thing you want to do, you want to get your hot glue gun, start heating up. Mine's just about ready. And you want to pick out what crayons you're going to use. So I'm going to do this one in like greens, blues, and purples because I think that'll be cool, contrasting with the orange and just be kind of, you know, like fall colors. So if you've already got them broken into pieces, that's awesome. You can use whatever size you want. I've got some little ones. I've also got some that are just random and they're falling apart. And also I'm using Crayola and Rose Art, so we're going to test this out and we'll see if one works better than the other. But you want to start by taking whatever crayons you're using and you want to peel the wrappers off because we're going to melt these crayons and we really don't want those wrappers to be left on there. So start by peeling the wrappers off. And again, this is a great project for kids because anytime you give a kid crayons, one of the first things they do is peel the wrappers off. Like, I don't know, that's just what you got to do with crayons. So peel the wrappers off your crayons. Alright, so here I am. I've got my crayons all peeled, my wrappers off to the side, and I've got my glue gun heated up. And so the basic idea is I'm just going to arrange the crayons around the top and glue them on, but I just want to mention a quick word about gluing them. I'm choosing to use hot glue because it'll give a secure hold, but what you want to keep in mind is while hot glue does melt when it's warm, it melts at a much higher temperature than what the crayons will melt at. So what that means is when you're blowing it with the blow dryer and the crayons start melting, this isn't going to melt. So when you glue them on, you don't want to do huge globs because then you're going to end up with globs underneath your crayons once it's all melted because the crayons will melt but you'll be left with those globs. So you want to try to keep it just thin and flat as much as you're able to. So then just kind of look at how you want to arrange it and glue them on. I'm just using a little bit of glue, just enough so that way it'll hold for while I start blow drying. You can also snap your crayons into smaller sizes. Just glue them all along the top. Now I just had one that I started to glue on and it came off and it left behind this big glob. So instead of just starting to re-glue it, I want to first pop that off because that's too much glue, and once the crayons melt, it'll still be big and globby. So I'm just going to pick at it with my finger. I just pulled it off. I know that I probably couldn't see that because of how I turned it, but you just pick at it with your fingernail and it'll come right off very easily. Alright, so I've got it all glued on, and now we're done with the work. We're here at the fun part, the moment of truth, where we're going to start blow drying it. So I'm going to start it off on a lower setting, and then if I need to, I'll go up to a higher setting. I've just got it on warm right now, and if I change those, I'll let you know. But I'm just going to start off at a lower setting so I don't overdo it instantly. And we're going to see how this pumpkin turns out. Now, I would recommend that you don't stay right up close to it because it will splatter. So you want to make sure you're back a little ways. So I'm going to stand up, and you'll see the blow dryer on here, and you'll see the crayons start to melt. So let's try this out. Okay, just kidding what I said about starting low. I'm just going to start off high so we can get these crayons melted, because I want to see how this pumpkin turns out. Alright, I just finished melting it. It took me about 10 minutes. And here is the look while it's finishing cooling off. And I'll show you once it's finished cooling off completely. I'll show you all the sides because it looks really cool. I'm really happy with how this turned out. So here you go. This is the finished pumpkin that I worked on. And you guys saw the video of me melting it, but that was obviously sped up and I cut out a lot of parts of it. But later on this week, I'll put out a time-lapse video of the whole entire melting process. It took me about 10 minutes or so to melt it just because there's so much wax from the crayons. So that's definitely something to keep in mind, as this does take some time. And you can see how there's different textures, you know. You can change that by the direction you aim the hair dryer. You could also change it by how many crayons you use. So for mine, it kind of comes down halfway. And if I had done less crayons, I think it might have turned out a little bit better. You would have been able to see more of the pumpkin if I had done that. But I think it's really cool. I really like these drips here. Get some really neat textures and patterns. Now, I will also mention that if you bump these too much, they will snap off because it's just wax. It's just like a crayon. So think about if you had a crayon that was that thin and you bumped it, that's what would happen. And then I'll show you one other spot. You can see right here some spots where the hot glue was, where it was a little bit thicker, and you can see that that didn't melt because it melts at a higher temperature than the crayons melt at. So it left some spots where you can see these bumps of wax that's kind of clear through to the pumpkin. But you know, I think it looks kind of cool actually. So that's just something to keep in mind when you're working on your pumpkin. Another tip I'll throw out there is you can first paint your pumpkin. I've seen lots of really cool projects where people paint their pumpkin the neutral color like black or white, and then the colors really pop off of there. I just decided, you know, keep it simple for today and just go with a natural pumpkin. But there's just some different ideas. Also, I had mentioned that I was using 2 different types of crayons. I had some Crayola, some Rose Art, and I'm pretty sure I had some from like the coloring papers at like a restaurant. But I didn't notice really much of a difference in between the speeds of it melting. Of course, I wasn't able to track, you know, oh, that crayon was this brand and that crayon was that brand. But they all melted pretty consistently, so that was nice. But this is just a great, easy project. It's a great after-school project. It's a great way for younger kids to decorate their pumpkins because they might not be able to carve a pumpkin out. But, you know, with a little bit of parent help, you can sit there and hold a blow dryer and watch the paint colors run down. It's really fun. And it's also a great way to use up all those old crayons that aren't really ruined. They still work just fine, just, you know, they're not as exciting as a fresh new pack of crayons. So go ahead and let me know in the comments below how you decorate your pumpkin. I want to know, first of all, whether you paint your pumpkin first, and if you paint it, I want to hear what color you use. And then second of all, I want to know what color crayons you use. So I want to hear your ideas and how you combine different colors to get different looks with your pumpkins. And I hope that this tutorial was helpful and maybe it'll inspire you and give you some new ways to decorate your pumpkin if you're not a big fan of carving pumpkins. So make sure you give this video a big thumbs up. I would appreciate that a lot. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. But that's today's tutorial. So make sure you come back next week for the next Tutorial Tuesday. Bye you guys. Happy crafting. So today I scored on these pumpkins because I got these 2 pie pumpkins at the store. and they rang up wrong the first time they went through the register. So then I went to the front desk and they were like, oh, sorry, and they tried to fix it, so I got a refund to get it down to their normal price. But then we realized that the store policy is that if they ring it up wrong, you get an item free. So then they refunded me again, and I got one of these free. So I paid $1.28 for both these pumpkins. Boom.